After the chaos of her older brother's wedding and his swift move to another state, Alina found herself alone again, just her and her mother, Celeste, under the roof of their aging rental home in Willow Springs. She'd always tried to honor her mother's sacrifices. After all, Celeste had raised 2 children after her husband's sudden passing. But lately, something in the house had shifted. The warmth was gone. So was the balance. At 28, Alina was earning well as a mid-level financial analyst, pulling in enough to cover the rent, groceries, and bills without worry. Celeste, on the other hand, had long given up her part-time work, claiming she deserved to rest now that her children were grown. Yet rest had evolved into a daily pattern of expectation, meals cooked, errands run, and money constantly requested. "Alina, can you send me $400 this week? Dinner's not ready yet? I need a new phone. This one feels slow." It wasn't just the asks, it was the tone, the entitlement, the way Celeste treated her not like a daughter but like a personal assistant. Still, Alina held her tongue. She reasoned that after everything her mother had endured, widowhood, financial hardship, raising 2 children alone, maybe this was her way of coping. But the guilt was wearing thin. Worse, her brother Leo, now married and settled in Chicago, seemed to be the invisible hand stirring the pot. Ever since his wife came into the picture, he distanced himself from Alina and had convinced their mother that he could offer a better future for her, once things settled down. In truth, he never sent money. Never called. And yet, somehow, he always got the benefit of the doubt. One evening, Alina returned from work to find Celeste and Leo sitting in the living room, speaking in hushed tones. Leo looked up with that same smirk he always wore when he was about to say something unkind. "You still come home this late? No wonder you're always so tired." Alina ignored him. "What are you doing here? I can't visit my mother?" he replied, spreading his arms theatrically. "Come on, Alina. Don't be so cold." She glanced at her mother, who was smiling faintly, sipping tea. "I didn't know he was coming. He just dropped by," Celeste said casually. Alina's chest tightened. There was something brewing. She felt it in the way Leo leaned back like he owned the place, in the way her mother avoided her gaze. She headed toward the kitchen, ready to escape the tension, when Leo added, "Actually, we were talking about the future. Mom's future." Alina paused mid-step. "What about it?" "Well," Celeste said, setting down her tea, "we think it's time you moved out. It's just. I need more peace at home, and Leo and Maya have offered to take me in for a while. Maybe permanently." Alina stared at them, speechless. "You want me to move out?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "It's not that we don't appreciate everything you've done," Leo chimed in quickly, "but it's time you stood on your own." "I am standing on my own," Alina said, incredulous. "I pay the rent. The utilities. I've covered every single expense since Dad died." Celeste waved her hand. "Oh, Alina. That's what daughters do. You owe me that much. I raised you, didn't I?" Her voice was light, almost playful. As though kicking her daughter out was just another household decision, like picking a new sofa. Alina's eyes darted between the two. "And you think Leo will take care of you?" Celeste smiled. "He promised." Leo nodded, clearly enjoying himself. "Don't worry, sis. We've got this." Alina laughed. Not out of humor, out of sheer disbelief. The irony was almost theatrical. "So let me get this straight. You want me to leave the home I've been funding, so you can go live with the son who hasn't sent a single check? That's not fair," Leo said, suddenly defensive. "No," Alina said coldly. "What's not fair is that I've been paying this family's bills for 5 years while you vanished and now you show up and convince Mom to toss me out like a spare piece of furniture." Celeste's expression hardened. "You're being dramatic." "No, I'm being honest," Alina replied. "But you know what? Fine. If that's what you want, I'll leave." Leo leaned back, smug again. "Wow, that was easier than I thought." Alina walked calmly to her room, her mind already racing, not with sadness, but with clarity. This wasn't her home anymore. It hadn't been for a while. That night, while they watched TV in the living room, laughing and pretending victory was theirs, Alina sat in her room and opened her laptop. A folder labeled Emergency Exit Plan had been waiting for this moment. Within it were copies of the rental lease, signed by her alone, and receipts for every appliance, piece of furniture, and payment she'd made over the last 5 years. She'd known, deep down, that this moment would come. She just didn't expect it to be so absurdly transparent. She opened her banking app, finalized her deposit on a new apartment a few blocks away, and began organizing a moving service. The sooner she was out, the sooner she could be free. And when moving day came, she wouldn't just leave quietly. She'd take what was hers, with a smile. It had been a week since her mother and Leo smugly told her to leave. And now, it was moving day. Alina stood at the threshold of the house she had kept afloat for years, watching the movers pull up in a modest truck bearing the logo Swift and Smooth Transitions. Fitting, she thought. Because that's exactly what she planned to do, transition, swiftly and smoothly, out of this twisted dynamic and into her own life. The front door creaked as she opened it. Leo and Celeste were seated on the couch, cups of coffee in hand, as if nothing were happening. Their expressions were casual, too casual. But Alina saw the tightness around her mother's mouth, the slight twitch of Leo's jaw. They thought this was the moment they'd won. That she would leave quietly. That she'd slink out humiliated. Today's the big day, huh? Leo called out, his tone breezy. Bet it feels good to finally grow up and move on. Yeah, Alina replied, smiling gently. It really does. She walked past them without a word, heading into her bedroom. The movers followed her instructions to the letter, starting with the essentials, her clothes, her boxes, her laptop, and carefully packed documents. Then came the surprise. Alina stepped into the hallway and called to the team, her voice clear and commanding. Next, we'll take the living room furniture, sofa, coffee table, entertainment console, television. Be careful with the corners, some of those pieces are custom made. She didn't even have to look to know her mother's head snapped toward her in shock. Wait, Celeste said, sitting up. What do you mean the living room furniture? The furniture, Mom, Alina said calmly, as she watched the movers begin detaching the flat-screen TV from the wall. It's mine. All of it. I bought every piece. Remember the invoice I showed you when we redecorated last year? You can't be serious, Leo scoffed. You're taking the TV? The sofa, too, Alina added. And the rug. Oh, and that robot vacuum. It was expensive. The house erupted in disbelief. Alina, stop this right now, Celeste snapped, standing up abruptly. You're being ridiculous. We need these things to live comfortably. Funny, Alina replied, tilting her head. You seemed pretty comfortable telling me to leave with nothing. She walked into the kitchen and began pointing to appliances. Toaster. Microwave. That blender you always claimed hurt your ears? Mine. Coffee maker, also mine. The fridge, well. I technically leased it through the appliance plan, so yeah, mine too. The movers were efficient and polite, their expressions unreadable as they carried out her instructions. Leo stormed into the hallway. You don't seriously think you have the right to take all this? This is Mom's house. Alina turned to face him. Is it? Because the lease is in my name. I've been paying the rent, the utilities, the internet, and all maintenance fees. You thought I was just another freeloading daughter? You and your wife packed up and moved to Chicago without even checking on Mom once. And now you waltz back in and tell me to get out? Celeste's eyes widened. What do you mean the lease is in your name? You don't even know? Alina said, almost laughing. Wow. That explains a lot. You've been sitting pretty while I covered everything, and you never even looked at a document. Leo's face turned a dangerous shade of red. You should have told us. Alina raised a brow. You didn't ask. They both stood there, slack-jawed, as the movers hauled out the final box from the kitchen. Then Alina walked over to the entryway cabinet, retrieved a thick folder, and handed it to Celeste. Inside were years of receipts, furniture invoices, rent statements, bank transfers. Proof. I kept these, she said softly, because I always knew I'd need them. Celeste looked like she wanted to say something, maybe apologize, maybe lash out, but no words came. Then, as the last mover carried out a large floor lamp, Alina turned toward the center of the room and clapped her hands together once. "That's it," she said brightly. "All done. You can lock up when the lease ends. You've got 2 weeks." Leo squinted. "What lease ends?" "I'm terminating it early," she said, walking toward the door. "Legally, I can. 30-day notice was already submitted last week. Which means in 2 more weeks, this place will be unlisted. So unless you want to cover the new rent yourselves, you'll have to leave." "What?" Celeste gasped. "But where are we supposed to go?" Alina paused, her hand on the doorknob. "I don't know. Maybe Leo can use some of that financial wizardry he's so proud of," she said with a smile. "Or maybe you can finally get a job again. I hear the cafe downtown is hiring." Leo took a step forward. "You think this is funny?" "No," Alina said calmly. "I think it's overdue." She looked around the hollowed-out space one last time. The bare walls. The stunned silence. The illusion of control shattered. "I hope the two of you enjoy living with each other," she added. "You wanted me gone. You got what you wanted." And with that, she stepped out into the sunlight, climbed into the front seat of the moving truck, and shut the door behind her. As the vehicle pulled away, she didn't look back. But inside the cab, she couldn't stop smiling. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't leaving in defeat. She was leaving in victory. The silence inside the nearly empty house was suffocating. Celeste sat rigid on the worn floor of the living room, staring at the spot where the plush navy blue couch used to be. Leo paced in short, angry bursts, muttering to himself as if words might fix what had just happened. But there was no fixing it. Not anymore. Alina had left. Not just left, but gutted the house on her way out. The couch, the fridge, even the microwave, gone. Everything they had assumed was part of the house was hers, rightfully and legally. And now, the illusion of stability that Leo and Celeste had been clinging to was disintegrating before their eyes. How could she just take everything? Celeste finally snapped, voice high and desperate. She said it was all hers, and she had the papers to prove it, Leo replied, pinching the bridge of his nose. "How was I supposed to know?" Celeste's face twisted. "You said we didn't need to worry. That she wouldn't actually leave." "Well, she did," Leo growled. "And now we've got 2 weeks before the lease is up." He tossed the crumpled lease termination notice onto the floor. Alina had submitted it a week before the move. Legally valid. With her name on the lease and all the payments in her account history, there was no room to contest it. The landlord wouldn't even entertain Celeste's call. "No renewal, no transfer," the property manager had said curtly. Ms. Cruz made that clear. Celeste buried her face in her hands. "She played us." "No," Leo said darkly. "She outsmarted us." It didn't take long for reality to hit harder. Without Alina's financial support, neither of them could afford the rent, especially not Leo, who had left his last job assuming he'd be able to take it easy while staying with their mom. Maya, his wife, had already started looking at rental listings in other towns, far from the embarrassment now settling over their lives like fog. Across town, Alina was thriving. Her new apartment was smaller but sunnier, with wide windows that caught the golden afternoon light just right. She'd arranged her furniture, exactly how she wanted it. She no longer had to walk into the kitchen and find dirty dishes she didn't use. No more constant requests for money. No guilt trips. No passive-aggressive comments at the dinner table. It was quiet. And it was hers. She stood in the kitchen one evening, cutting vegetables for a light stir-fry when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She let it ring. Then it rang again. This time, it was Celeste. Alina sighed and answered, placing her phone on speaker. "Alina," her mother began, her voice a mix of shaky nerves and forced sweetness. I was wondering if maybe you'd consider coming back home." Alina didn't respond immediately. She finished slicing the red peppers and turned on the stove. Celeste continued, sensing hesitation. "It's just. Things have been hard since you left. The fridge is gone, and Leo's between jobs again. And I'm not as young as I used to be. It's difficult." "Why not ask Leo?" Alina replied evenly. "You said he would take care of you. You kicked me out, remember? That was a misunderstanding, Celeste said quickly. I never meant for you to feel unwanted. Your brother, he thought it would be good for you to get your own place. Alina chuckled, not bitterly, just knowingly. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom. It was a decision. One you made. You chose him. You believed him. And now you're surprised he can't deliver. There was a pause on the other end. Then, quietly, I didn't realize how much you were really doing. You never asked. Celeste's voice cracked. I'm sorry. I believe you, Alina said gently. But I won't forget it either. I gave up years of my life for this family. And when I finally drew the line, you shoved me out the door. I didn't mean to. But you did it anyway. Another long silence passed before Celeste whispered, Will you help us? Please. Alina turned off the stove and walked to the window, looking out at the bustling street below. No, she said simply. I won't. Alina. I'm not coming back. I'm not funding you. And I'm not cleaning up a mess you made by trusting the wrong person. I tried to protect you. But when you chose to turn on me, you forfeited that protection. Celeste let out a shaky breath. So that's it? That's freedom, Alina replied. Goodbye, Mom. She ended the call. And this time, she blocked the number. Within the next 2 weeks, word spread through their extended family. Leo and Celeste had been evicted. With no savings and no income, they had used up the last of Maya's emergency fund to move into a tiny, run-down apartment on the edge of town. The plumbing was bad. The walls were thin. And the bitterness that had once been directed at Alina now turned inward, toward each other. Leo and Celeste argued constantly, their blame bouncing back and forth like a toxic ping-pong match. Maya, now the sole breadwinner, began staying out later, avoiding the tension. The happy little plan they'd orchestrated, the fantasy of a cushy life on someone else's dime, had collapsed completely. And at the center of that collapse was one name they refused to speak aloud. Alina. Back in her own apartment, Alina stood by the window again, holding a cup of jasmine tea. It was dusk, the city skyline glowing softly. A cat curled at her feet, a rescue she'd adopted last week, something she never could have done in the old house. Her heart felt light. Her phone buzzed. A message from a former co-worker. Just heard your story through Maya's cousin. Girl, you're a legend. Alina smiled. Not for revenge. Not for validation. But for the first time in years, she felt seen. She had stood her ground, defended her worth, and reclaimed her life. And despite the manipulation, the guilt, and the betrayal, she had come out the other side stronger, smarter, and free. They tried to cut her out. But she had walked away on her own terms. And that, she thought, sipping her tea, was the greatest win of all. 2 weeks had passed since Alina's departure, and inside the crumbling apartment on the edge of town, the illusion had officially shattered. The cheap walls were thin enough for neighbors to hear every argument. The linoleum floors curled at the edges. The stove took 10 minutes just to light. The single bedroom was cramped, forcing Leo and Maya to share it while Celeste slept on a worn-out couch that smelled vaguely of mildew. The once smug energy that had filled the air during Alina's eviction was long gone. Now, all that remained was desperation. Leo's job prospects had vanished. He hadn't updated his resume in years, assuming he wouldn't need to. Maya worked double shifts at a call center, often returning home too tired to speak. She avoided eye contact with Celeste, who in turn pretended to nap most of the day just to avoid more awkwardness. It didn't take long for them to realize what Alina had truly provided. Groceries no longer magically appeared. The Wi-Fi was inconsistent. The utility bills started to pile up, and no one had the nerve, or ability, to pay them. Then came the eviction notice. Celeste stared at the paper, heart pounding. It was déjà vu, only this time there was no Alina to bail her out. The rent hadn't been paid in weeks. The deposit they'd used to move here had drained what little remained of Maya's savings. And now, they had 10 days to find a solution or be out on the street. Call Alina, Leo snapped. She has to help us. She has money. Celeste looked away. She won't. I already tried. Leo stared. You did what? I begged, she admitted, voice small. She said no. She said, I chose you. Leo turned red, pacing furiously. Well, then you need to fix it. You're her mother. I was her mother, Celeste whispered. I don't know what I'm to her now. 3 days later, Alina sat in her new apartment, sipping tea as the late afternoon sun cast golden bars across her hardwood floor. The place smelled like vanilla and peace. A far cry from the chaos she'd left behind. She was mid-email, reviewing a new freelance offer, when her phone lit up again. This time, it was a new number. She let it go to voicemail. Then, an hour later, another call. Curious, she checked the transcription. It was Leo. Alina, listen. We messed up. I get it now, okay? We were wrong. You didn't deserve any of that. Just. Please, we need help. Just for a little while. You don't even have to talk to Mom. Just send something. Anything. She deleted the message without responding. An hour later, Celeste tried again. Samantha, Alina. I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. I didn't know how much you did for us. I believed Leo, and I shouldn't have. Please come back. Or just talk to me. I don't want to be alone. This time, Alina stared at the screen for a long time before replying. She typed slowly. You weren't alone. You had me for years. You ignored me, used me, discarded me. Now I'm finally living my life, and you want me back because things are hard. I'm not a safety net anymore. I'm done being the one who always saves everyone else. I choose me now. She pressed send. Then, she blocked both numbers again. Maya, who had tried to stay out of it all, came home that night with clenched fists and tears in her eyes. Leo was waiting on the couch. They let me go, she said flatly. They said budget cuts. But I know it's because I've been late every day this week trying to sort this disaster out. So, what now? Leo asked, rubbing his temples. She looked at him like he was a stranger. I don't know. Maybe we should have never left Chicago. He scoffed. Don't blame me. You said we'd be better off near my mom. No, she said, her voice shaking. You said that. You said she had inheritance money. That she had a stable home. Well, how was I supposed to know Alina paid for everything? Ma, you turned away. Because you never asked. Because you never listened. Back in her apartment, Alina was listening to the soft hum of her kettle. She had just returned from a yoga class, her first in years, and had plans to attend a gallery opening with co-workers that weekend. She no longer flinched at phone calls. No longer panicked over dinner or rent. She slept soundly. She smiled more. She laughed. Her life was hers. Later that night, she opened her journal and began to write. Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's as quiet as walking away from people who only see your value when they need something. I didn't walk away to punish them, I walked away to save myself. And I'll never apologize for that again. Just then, a message came in through email, a last attempt from her mother, sent from a new address. Alina, we've lost the apartment. We're staying in a friend's basement for now. Leo and Maya are fighting every day. I know you hate me. I know I was wrong. But please, just talk to me. I don't want to die alone. Alina stared at the message for a long time. Then, she closed her laptop. She didn't need revenge. She didn't need an apology. She had her own peace now. And that was more than enough. 3 months had passed. Alina stood on her balcony, a mug of hot coffee warming her hands, the cityscape of Willow Springs glowing softly under the rising sun. Birds chirped from a distant rooftop, and below, the street was just beginning to stir with life, delivery trucks, early joggers, the bakery across the street opening its shutters. Her apartment, once a dream she thought she couldn't afford, was now her sanctuary. No more whispers behind closed doors. No more being expected to clean up messes she didn't make. No more being treated like a bank with legs. She had finally chosen herself, and she didn't regret it for a second. Inside, a framed quote hung above her desk. Sometimes you must walk away, not out of pride or anger, but because you finally understand your worth. Her younger self wouldn't have believed this moment possible. For years, Alina had wrapped herself in guilt, in obligation, in the false idea that love meant sacrifice without boundaries. That family loyalty meant suffering in silence. That choosing herself meant abandoning others. Now, she knew better. She still got updates about her old life, whether she wanted them or not. A cousin had run into Maya at a pharmacy, working part-time while trying to keep a roof over their heads. Leo had taken a job hauling furniture on weekends, something he never would have considered before. Her mother, Celeste, bounced between relatives, her health deteriorating and her mood souring even more with each rejection. There was no joy in hearing these things, but no sorrow either. They had made their choices. So had she. Once, she might have answered their calls. Once, she might have felt the need to rescue them. Now? She understood the power of letting go. It wasn't cruelty, it was survival. That weekend, Alina hosted a small gathering in her apartment, a celebration of her new promotion. She had recently been named team lead at her firm, a role that came with a pay raise, more autonomy, and even the option to work remotely twice a week. Her co-workers brought wine and dessert, and by 9 p.m., the apartment buzzed with laughter and the clinking of glasses. No one there knew about her family's betrayal in full detail, but they didn't need to. What mattered was that Alina had built something new, surrounded by people who appreciated her for who she was, not for what she could give. Later that night, as she was cleaning up, her colleague and now close friend Nora turned to her. "You seem so light," Nora said, sipping the last of her drink. Alina smiled. "I think I finally stopped carrying people who were never willing to carry me." "Family?" Alina nodded. "Hard, huh?" "Very," she admitted. "But it was also necessary." Nora hugged her. "Well, whatever you did, it's working. You're glowing." The next morning, Alina received one last message. An email from Leo this time, not Celeste, not Maya. "Alina, I know you probably won't read this. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I just wanted to say. You were right. About everything. We were selfish. We used you. And when you left, we thought you'd come back. Because that's what you always did. But you didn't. And that broke something in us. Mom's not well. She's with a second cousin now, someone we barely know. She keeps asking for you. And I don't know what to tell her. I guess I'm just writing this to say I'm sorry. Not because I want anything, but because it's the least I can do. I hope you're happy. I hope you're doing okay." Alina stared at the screen for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't get angry. She simply let it go. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Some stories didn't need sequels. Some chapters were meant to stay closed. Months turned into seasons. Alina traveled, for the first time in years. She took a solo trip to the coast, stayed in the cozy seaside cottage, and spent mornings walking barefoot on the beach. She wrote in her journal again. She read books cover to cover. She took photos not to impress anyone, but to capture moments for herself. She volunteered at a community program for young women, mentoring girls who were trying to break free from toxic homes, too. She never told them the full story, but she offered them what she once needed most, the permission to choose themselves. "You don't owe anyone your peace," she told one girl, after a tearful session. "Even if they gave you life, they don't get to take it away." Exactly 1 year after she moved out, Alina stood once more in front of her old house. The building was already listed for rent again. A different name on the mailbox. The curtains were new. The laughter that used to echo through those walls when her father was still alive? Long gone. She didn't go inside. She didn't need to. Instead, she walked to the corner cafe that had once been her solace on bad days. The barista, who remembered her order by heart, greeted her with a surprised smile. "You haven't been around in ages." "I've been finding myself," Alina replied. She took her coffee to go and walked slowly down the street. It felt like closing a door, not with a bang, not with tears, but with quiet acceptance. Back home, she opened her journal and wrote the final words to a chapter she'd been crafting for months. "I was the one they underestimated. The one they thought would keep giving. But I chose to stop. And in doing so, I found everything they tried to take from me. Freedom. Peace. self-worth. And above all, joy. She closed the journal and placed it on her shelf. Then, she curled up on her sofa, hers, and watched the sun fade behind the city skyline, heart light, spirit unburdened. Alina had lost a family she never really had. But she had gained herself. And that was a trade she'd make 1,000 times over.